Let us begin today's story. Even now, I sometimes struggle to believe it all happened. My soon-to-be ex-wife Nina and I are still legally married, only because of the system. In our state, the law requires a 12-month separation before a divorce can be finalized. Honestly, it just feels like a slow and painful delay of the inevitable. During this so-called cooling-off period, Nina was supposed to find a place of her own nearby so we could manage 50-50 custody of our 3 kids. But why are we even getting divorced? Well, it all started with Nina's twin sister, Melanie. Melanie and her husband, Ryan, had been struggling to have a child. I truly sympathize with their situation, but instead of pursuing adoption or hiring a professional surrogate, they decided that because Melanie and Nina are identical twins, Nina would be the perfect surrogate. The worst part? I wasn't even included in the conversation. Turns out, this plan had been discussed and agreed upon weeks before I had any clue. No one sat down to explain it to me like a responsible adult would. No. Instead, Nina dropped it on me casually, like it was nothing more than deciding what to eat for dinner. I remember that moment so vividly. We were on the couch. She was scrolling on her phone and said, "So, I've been thinking of doing something really important for Melanie." I looked at her. What kind of important thing? She finally put the phone down and said, "I'm going to be her surrogate." At first I laughed thinking it was a joke. But her face remained dead serious, like she expected me to smile and pat her on the back. "Wait, what?" I sat up straighter. "You're going to carry their baby?" She nodded, smiling like she had just announced she was volunteering at a charity. "Yeah. Melanie and Ryan have been trying for so long. And since we're genetically the same, it's basically like she's carrying her own baby." My stomach dropped. "Nina, are you serious right now? When did this even come up?" She shrugged like it was no big deal. "A few weeks ago. We've been discussing it." I stared at her in disbelief. "And you didn't think to tell me before now?" She sighed and finally set her phone down. "Liam, this isn't about you. It's my body. My decision. I don't need permission." "Permission?" I repeated. "We're married, Nina. This isn't a haircut, it's a life-changing decision that affects both of us." She rolled her eyes. "I'm telling you now." "Oh great. No. After you've already committed. That's not how marriage works." Her face turned cold. "I knew you'd react like this. That's why I waited. But this is happening, with or without your support." I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. "So that's it? Either I agree or what?" She crossed her arms. "Or maybe we need to reevaluate our relationship." There it was. She did not say the words out loud, but the meaning was clear. Get on board or get lost. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't just the surrogacy that bothered me, though that was massive. It was the betrayal. This had been planned behind my back for weeks, maybe months. Nina, Melanie, and Ryan made life-altering decisions without even having the decency to include me. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "If you go through with this, we are finished." She frowned. "You're being completely unreasonable." I let out a hollow laugh. "Unreasonable? Nina, you're pregnant with someone else's child and didn't even tell your husband until after the fact. You don't see a problem?" She shook her head. "I'm doing something beautiful for my sister. I thought you'd understand." I stood up and ran a hand through my hair. "Yeah, well, I don't." Fast forward a few months, she's pregnant. When Nina told me, I simply said, "Okay," and walked out of the room. 2 days later, I filed for divorce. I had the paperwork ready the same week she first told me. I was just waiting for her to go through with it. Apparently this shocked everyone. Nina acted like she never saw it coming. Which honestly blows my mind. Did she think I was bluffing? That I would magically come around and support her having someone else's child? No. I told her exactly what would happen. And I meant every word. Lisa had the nerve to act surprised. Sarah and Kevin weren't any better. They tried guilt-tripping me into staying, throwing every cliché in the book at me. "You're abandoning your wife," Sarah said, shaking her head like I was some heartless monster. "She needs your support now more than ever." I let out a bitter laugh. She's the one who made this choice, not me. Kevin, always the so-called peacemaker, tried softening the blow. "Grant, this is a beautiful thing she's doing for us. Don't you see that?" "Oh, I saw it. I see that you two wanted a baby and Lisa decided to carry it, without even talking to me first. That's not a marriage. That's not a partnership. That's just a decision she made. And now she gets to deal with the consequences." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "You vowed to stand by her no matter what. And she vowed to respect me and not make life-changing decisions behind my back." I shot back. "So here we are." That was the end of it. I filed the paperwork. The separation became official. At first, Lisa acted like she didn't care, kept that same self-righteous attitude like she was above it all. "I don't need you," she said one night when I told her I was done discussing anything. "I can handle this on my own." "Great," I replied. "Then do that." But as the months passed, reality started catching up to her. Suddenly, she wasn't as confident. She wasn't as in control. The house turned into a war zone of silence and side eyes. Lisa started acting like nothing had changed, like I was still supposed to care about her pregnancy, or worse, like I should be involved in it somehow. Meanwhile, I had mentally checked out. Why would I invest energy into a pregnancy that wasn't mine? A pregnancy that ended our marriage? Of course she didn't move out. Finding a place nearby wasn't easy, especially while pregnant. She said it was for the kids, but let's be real, it was about convenience. Anytime she needed something, she still expected me to play husband. One night, she walked into the living room while I was watching TV. "Can you run to the store for me?" I didn't even look away from the screen. "For what?" "Pickles and maybe some ice cream." I let out a dry laugh. "Yeah. That's not my job anymore." She sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. "Grant, come on. It's just a quick trip." I finally turned to her. "Lisa, I'm not your husband anymore. Go ask Sarah or Kevin." Her jaw tightened. But she didn't say anything. She just turned and walked out. As the weeks went on, the hints turned into more direct complaints. She'd talk about how stressed she was, how much she had to do alone. At first, I ignored it. What did she expect? That I'd swoop in and play the supportive husband like I had during our own pregnancies? No. Those were our kids. This was her decision. Their decision. Not mine. Eventually, the subtle hints became blunt confessions. "I don't know how I'm going to do this without you," she said one evening, her hand on her growing belly like that was supposed to mean something to me. She tried again. Tried to make me care. I barely glanced up from my laptop. "Call Sarah. Call Kevin." She let out a frustrated sigh. "It's not fair that I have to go through this alone." I closed the laptop and looked her straight in the eyes. "Fair? You really want to talk about fair? Because I don't think it was fair to make this decision without me. But here we are." She had no answer. Just pursed her lips and looked away like she always did when she knew I was right. I kept telling her the same thing over and over again. Sarah and Kevin wanted this baby. They were the ones who made all those promises, how amazing this surrogacy journey would be, how grateful they were, how supported you'd feel. So let them step up. But of course they were nowhere to be found, especially when it actually mattered. Kevin, in particular, had practically vanished. Sure, he showed up for the big things, doctor's appointments, ultrasound days, the occasional errand. But the day-to-day stuff? He was MIA. One night, I asked Lisa, more out of curiosity than concern, "Where's Kevin been lately? Thought he was supposed to be all in on this." She shifted uncomfortably. "He's been taking care of Sarah. She's still recovering from the car accident." Fair enough. I'll admit that much. But it's not like he didn't know this baby was coming. If anything, he had months to prepare. Shouldn't he have planned for this? I asked. Lisa's expression tightened. "He's doing his best. He's under a lot of stress right now." I scoffed. "Yeah. And you're not." She didn't respond. But she didn't need to. That silence said everything. She didn't want to admit it, but I could see it clearly. Kevin's priorities had shifted. He had found an easy way out, and he was taking it. Meanwhile, Lisa started leaning harder and harder on me, like I was supposed to pick up the slack. Little favors, she called them. "Can you carry the groceries? Help me set up the crib? My back's sore, can you rub it?" Every time I gave her the same answer. "Nope. Not my kid. Not my problem." It built slowly. But one night it exploded. She was on the couch, rubbing her belly like she always did, sighing loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Desperate for attention. I ignored her as long as I could. But then she snapped. "You're still my husband, you know. You could at least pretend to care." That was it. The final straw. I stood up and my voice came out like stone. "No. I'm not your husband anymore. Not in any way that matters. You made your choice when you decided to do this without me. Do not come crawling back now because it's harder than you thought. Call Kevin. Call Sarah. Call literally anyone else. But leave me out of it." Her face crumpled. Then came the tears. It was her favorite move whenever things didn't go her way. But I was numb to it by now. "I'm going to bed," I said, walking past her as she sobbed on the couch. The next few weeks? Rinse and repeat. More guilt trips. More begging. More manipulation. and me shutting it all down. It was not just about boundaries anymore. It was about principle. Because if I gave in even once, she would take it as hope. And then I'd never escape the weight of her expectations. Then came the day the baby was born. I stayed out of it. No hospital visit. No flowers. No texts. No calls. She knew from the beginning I wouldn't be involved. But that did not stop her from trying. She called me from the hospital, voice cracking, crying into the phone. "Grant, please. I don't want to do this alone. I'm scared." My voice was calm, cold, certain. "You decided to get screwed by a man who wasn't your husband. That was your choice. So do not drag me into this. Kevin put that baby in you. Call him." "I did," she whispered, trembling. "He's not picking up." "Then call Sarah. Call your mother. This is their mess, not mine." There was a long pause. "You're being cruel," she whispered. I sighed. "No, Lisa. I'm keeping my word. You knew exactly where I stood before any of this happened." Then click. She hung up. When she finally came home with the baby, that is when the real chaos began. It was like she thought bringing the baby under our roof would magically flip some switch in me. Spoiler, it didn't. Bottles started appearing on the kitchen counter. Diapers on the couch. Little baby socks in the laundry. Like she was trying to trap me into caring. But I didn't bite. I stepped over the mess. Ignored the noise. Lived my life. Nights were the worst. The baby would cry. Wail. Shriek through the walls. And then the knock on my door. "Grant, please, just this once, can you help?" Her voice shaking. Weak. Desperate. "I'm exhausted." Lisa's voice pierced the silence like shattered glass. "For God's sake, it's 3 a.m. I haven't slept in days." I did not even open my eyes. "Your baby. Your problem. Go deal with it." There was a long silence. Then I heard her stomp down the hallway, muttering something under her breath. The next morning she was slamming cabinets. Mumbling loudly about how heartless I was. It was noise, just more noise. I will admit it, there were moments when I felt something. A twinge of guilt. Not because I believed I was wrong. But because the baby was innocent. That kid didn't ask to be born into this mess. But I knew, if I stepped in now, I'd be doing Lisa a favor. And I would never stop paying for that choice. She would take it as a signal. A weakness. A door opening. And I was not opening any doors. Then one evening she crossed the line. She came into the room, baby in her arms, face flushed red with frustration. "You can't just pretend this isn't happening," she snapped. "It's not fair that I'm doing everything on my own." I barely glanced up from my laptop. "Then call Kevin." "I did," she shouted. "He's busy. With Sarah." Again. I shrugged. "Not my baby. Not my problem." That was when her eyes went wild. "You are so goddamn selfish," she hissed. "You owe me this much." That made me pause. I closed my laptop and looked her dead in the eyes. "I don't owe you a thing," I said flatly. "You're acting like I cheated on you," she screamed. I stood up slowly. "I don't care if you slept with Kevin or some stranger off the street. You disrespected me the moment you got pregnant behind my back. I told you I was against it. I told you there'd be consequences. You said it was your body, your choice. Fine. Now it's my life, my choice. And I choose to stay out of it. This is your responsibility. Deal with it." Her lip trembled. Her eyes welled with fury. "You're a heartless monster," she spat. "One day you're going to regret this." She stormed out. And for a second, I actually thought it might be over. But an hour later she was back. A bag slung over her shoulder. The baby bundled up in her arms. "I can't do this," she said quietly. Her voice was shaking. "Not with you acting like this." I just nodded. She stood there staring at me, waiting for something. Maybe she thought I'd say sorry, or beg her to stay. I didn't. 2 days later she was gone. And for the first time in what felt like forever, the house was quiet. No crying. No guilt trips. No tension. Just peace. It felt like breathing again for the first time. A weight lifted off my chest. But with Lisa, peace never lasts. The phone call started the next morning. First her mother. Then her sister. Then, get this, the same sister's husband. It was like they formed a united front. A PR campaign. Each one had the same script. Lisa was overwhelmed. The baby was innocent. And I needed to step up for the sake of the child. They came at me like a firing squad. One call after another. The guilt train had officially left the station. Sarah, her twin sister, was the worst. She left a voicemail so smug it could curdle milk. I cannot believe how heartless you are, Grant, she said, her voice dripping with venom. Lisa just gave birth, and you abandoned her in the most vulnerable time of her life. Is this really who you are? Do you even have a soul? I scoffed. Deleted it. What was the point? This was not a tragic accident. It was not some wee situation. It was Lisa's choice, and she made it alone. I warned her I would not be part of this. Then Kevin called. Yes, Kevin, the actual father. Suddenly full of empathy and fake sincerity. Man, things are really tough right now, he started. Sarah's still recovering from the accident, Lisa's struggling. We're all family, man. We should be supporting each other. I nearly laughed. Family? I said, stunned. You barely lifted a finger while she was pregnant. And now you want to act like we're a team. That's not fair, he whined. I'm trying. Try harder. I cut him off cold. This is your kid. Step up. This isn't my problem. Then Lisa's mother called. Usually she is the voice of reason. But this time even she had crossed over. I just don't understand you, Grant, she said, her voice tired. Lisa is still your wife and you? No, she's not, I interrupted. My tone was calm. Ice cold. She stopped being my wife the moment she decided to carry another man's baby. If you care so much, maybe you should be helping her. Silence. Then click. She hung up. I think that was the moment it finally hit her. I wasn't going to cave. A few days later, Lisa came back. I knew she would. But I was not ready for the performance she brought with her. She walked in like she had not just called me every name in the book. Baby strapped to her chest in one of those carriers. Eyes tired but face burning with defiance. She stood in the middle of the living room like she was about to deliver a TED Talk. We need to talk, she announced. I didn't even look up from what I was doing. About what? She motioned to the baby like I had not spent months watching this entire train wreck unfold. You can't just ignore us forever. I'm not ignoring you, I said flat. I've been very clear. This is your responsibility, not mine. That was all she needed. She launched into a speech so long-winded I could have made popcorn. She cried about how hard it was being a single mom, how she felt abandoned, how she never thought I, of all people, would turn my back on her. I let her talk. What was the point of arguing? She didn't want a solution. She wanted a scapegoat. When she finally ran out of breath, I met her gaze. You signed up for this the moment you decided to carry their baby? Don't act like this is my fault. And that was the spark. She exploded. She snapped. You're being cruel, Grant, she shouted, her face contorted with frustration. You have no idea what I'm going through. You think this is easy for me? One day you're going to regret this. I know you will. The baby started wailing, probably because she was yelling loud enough to shake the roof. She turned to me furious. Are you just gonna sit there? Do something. I shrugged. Not my baby. Not my problem. Her face went scarlet. She stormed off and slammed the bedroom door so hard the walls rattled. The baby kept crying. I didn't move. Let her scream. Let her sulk. But I was done playing the role of the guy she could dump her mess on. That night she switched tactics. No yelling this time. She walked into the kitchen while I was making dinner, leaning against the counter trying to look calm. Voice soft. Almost gentle. I miss the way things used to be, she said barely above a whisper. I kept chopping vegetables. Didn't even look at her. That makes one of us. She stepped closer. Her tone hopeful. I mean it, Grant. I still love you. I want us to be a family again. I finally turned, eyebrow raised. A family? We were a family. You threw that away. She swallowed hard. Eyes welling up. I made a mistake. I set the knife down. Folded my arms. Yeah, you did. She nodded, took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. But even then, even in her apology, she dodged the one thing that mattered. Responsibility. She was sorry for how things turned out. Not for the choice that led us here. That ship has sailed, I told her flatly. You made your decision. Now you have to live with it. And that's when she broke. She started crying, shoulders trembling, tears streaming. I don't want to get divorced. I can't do this on my own. I exhaled. Tired. Numb. You don't have to do it alone, I said. You have Sarah. You have Kevin. But that wasn't what she wanted. She didn't want them. She wanted me. She wanted me to clean up the mess. To swoop in. To fix everything like I always had before. But not this time. I turned to her. Looked her in the eye. You don't want a divorce because you love me. You got pregnant by another man. Despite everything I said. That tells me all I need to know about your love for me. You want me around because I give you stability, a lifestyle, safety. But love. If you loved me, we wouldn't be here. She stood there crushed. Take my advice, I said. Get used to being alone. Get used to dealing with your mess. The divorce has been filed. And soon this lifestyle you're clinging to? It'll be gone. That night when I went to bed, I heard her crying in the next room. I didn't feel good about it, but I didn't feel bad either. I felt nothing. And that was it. The final nail. Whatever love we had, whatever connection once lived between us, she had burned it down. And I was standing in the ashes. The next morning she tried one last Hail Mary. She walked up to me, dark circles under her eyes, baby in her arms. She looked exhausted, desperate. Please, she whispered, voice raw. Just hold her. For a little while. I haven't slept more than 2 hours in days. For a second, I almost caved. You, Sarah, and Lisa decided all of this without me. You made your choices. Now you live with them. Do not come knocking on my door because the consequences are finally catching up. Kevin's face hardened. You think this is easy for me? I rolled my eyes. Spare me. You had an affair with your wife's sister, got her pregnant, and now you're standing here like I should feel sorry for you? His jaw clenched. I didn't plan for this to happen. Neither did I snapped. But here we are. He was silent then. For a long second he just stood there like maybe he was waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. You should go, I said quietly. He nodded once, stiffly, and walked away without another word. I closed the door behind him and locked it. Later that night I sat on the couch with the lights off, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator. For the first time in weeks, it felt like my house again. No crying baby, no shouting, no guilt-tripping letters or backdoor apologies. Just me. But the silence was not comforting. It was heavy. Still, I preferred it to the chaos. I was done letting people walk into my life and light it on fire. A few days later I got another letter. This time from Lisa herself. Handwritten. That alone told me she was desperate. Lisa never wrote anything by hand. It was long. 3 pages. She talked about the baby, about sleepless nights and bottles and diapers. She said she was sorry again. That she had finally realized just how deep she had hurt me. At the end she wrote something that stuck with me. I know I messed everything up. I do not expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I see it now. I was selfish. And I wish I had seen it sooner. I read that line 3 times before folding the letter up and putting it away in a drawer. I did not reply. Some days I felt anger. Other days just tired. But the overwhelming feeling was clarity. It was over. Whatever fantasy Lisa had about fixing things, it was done. Whatever guilt her family tried to heap on me, it no longer held weight. I was free. Not happy, maybe not yet. But free. And sometimes that is enough. Then came the legal stuff. Divorce papers. Custody agreements. Mediation dates. The kind of cold, clinical process that somehow still manages to bleed you dry. Lisa fought harder than I expected. Not to get back together, she knew that door was sealed shut. But for the house, for money, and for more time with the kids than she had ever actually spent when we were married. She painted herself as a struggling mother, a woman who had made mistakes but deserved another chance. And in a way maybe she did. Just not from me. I stayed calm through the meetings. I kept the focus on the kids, on what they needed. Stability. Consistency. Love. Not emotional warfare. Lisa's lawyer tried to poke holes, questioning my work hours, my ability to manage as a single father, but it backfired. Because I had been the one holding this family up for years, even before things fell apart. Eventually we settled. Joint custody with the kids staying primarily with me. Lisa got weekends and some holidays. I kept the house. It was fair. Maybe even generous, considering everything. When it was all finalized, I walked out of that courthouse feeling nothing at first. Just numb. Then relief. Then grief. Because no matter how justified everything felt, the truth was I had loved her once. Enough to build a life. Enough to dream of forever. And now it was just over. A chapter closed. Weeks turned into months. The house started to feel like my place again, not just the wreckage of what used to be. I rearranged furniture. Painted the living room. Donated old things that reminded me too much of the past. The kids adjusted better than I could have hoped. They were resilient more than I gave them credit for. We had our routines, school, movie nights, messy pancake breakfasts on Saturdays. Sometimes they asked questions. Will mommy ever live here again? And I'd kneel down, look them in the eyes and say, no, sweetheart. But we can still love her, even from afar. Lisa texted occasionally. Updates. Requests. The usual. We were civil. That was the best either of us could do. One evening I stood on the porch watching the kids play in the yard. The sun was setting behind them, casting long shadows and soft gold across the grass. And for the first time in a very long time I felt at peace. Not happy in a movie ending kind of way, but at peace in the real world way, the kind that comes after surviving the storm. I had been broken, but I was still here, still standing, still dad. And that was enough. Kevin's family now. That's where he belongs. My youngest tilted their head, clearly still trying to piece it all together. My oldest just looked away, the weight of something unspoken settling on their shoulders. It broke my heart a little, because no matter how carefully I tried to shield them, they were still caught in the middle of choices they never made. That night, after they went to bed, I sat in the living room with the TV on but muted, just staring at the soft glow of the screen. I thought about how everything had spiraled. About the nights I spent wondering if I could have done something differently, said something that would have changed Lisa's mind, fought harder before it all went off the rails. But deep down I knew better. This wasn't a story of one mistake. It was a buildup of years. Years of compromise, silence, and ignoring red flags for the sake of a marriage that had already fractured long before the surrogacy. Lisa wasn't evil. She was just lost. Entitled maybe. Immature. Reckless. But not evil. And yet, even knowing that, I had no intention of ever letting her back in. The kids deserved better. We deserved better. Weeks passed. The tension slowly eased. The kids began to talk about school, games, and friends again instead of the baby or their mom. Lisa stopped pushing as hard. Maybe she finally realized I wasn't bluffing when I said I was done. She still saw the kids. Still called sometimes. But her presence no longer loomed over every corner of my life. One Friday evening we were having pizza in the living room, cartoons playing, the kids laughing at something silly, when my youngest suddenly leaned against me and said, "I like it better when it's just us." And I felt something shift. Not sadness. Not anger. Just peace. We had come through the storm. Bruised? Yes. But not broken. I tucked them in that night with a little extra care. Watched them sleep for a while, their tiny faces calm, unburdened for once. And I promised myself that no matter what chaos Lisa tried to stir in the future, I wouldn't let it reach them. Our home was ours again. It was not perfect, but it was honest, safe, real. Granting me primary custody. The judge acknowledged everything, the timeline, the decisions, the documentation. It all painted a clear picture of who had been putting the kids first, and who had been focused on something, or someone else. Lisa still had visitation rights, but they were structured, supervised, and scheduled. No more erratic pop-ins. No more last-minute guilt trips. Just consistency. And for once, peace. I wish I could say she took it well. She didn't. There was yelling outside the courtroom, tears, threats about appeals. But none of it touched me the way it used to. I had been dragged through every level of emotional manipulation she could throw at me, and I had finally reached the other side. And on the other side? It was quiet. Not empty. Not lonely. Just still. It took time for the kids to adjust. For a while they kept waiting for the next explosion. A fight. A storm. Something. But slowly they began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this version of life, our version, could be steady. We made new routines. Movie nights on Fridays. Pancakes on Saturdays. A game jar where we each picked something to do together every Sunday. I learned how to braid hair. How to sew a patch on a favorite stuffed animal. How to be both the soft place to land and the firm wall they could lean on. One night, my oldest knocked on my bedroom door long after they were supposed to be asleep. "Can I sleep in here tonight?" They didn't say why. They didn't have to. "Yeah, come on," I said, pulling back the blanket. As they curled up beside me, I realized something. This wasn't the life I had planned. But it was the life I had fought for. And it was finally mine. No more games. No more guilt. Just me and my kids building something better. Something honest. Lisa faded into the background after a while. She still saw the kids during her visits, but she stopped trying to pull me into her messes. Maybe she finally understood that I was done. Truly done. The day the final divorce papers came through, I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry either. I just sat in my car outside the courthouse, stared at the clean signature line, and let the quiet settle over me like a warm blanket. It was over. And what came next? That was up to me. Granting me full custody. Lisa got scheduled visitation, but it wasn't a victory lap. It wasn't about winning. In cases like these, no one really wins, you just hope to protect what matters most. For me, that was my kids. Always had been. Lisa's lawyer worked hard to spin the story. They painted her as selfless, misunderstood, a woman who made a difficult choice out of love. They talked about sacrifice and pain and her supposed devotion to the children. But the court wasn't blind. They saw the missed pickups, the manipulative texts, the instability, the baby that wasn't mine, and her refusal to take accountability for any of it. They saw what I had lived. My lawyer stood up and laid it all out. The documented calls, the financial strain, the endless ways Lisa had tried to use our kids as bargaining chips, tools to get sympathy or worse to get money. And the truth? It spoke louder than any courtroom performance ever could. So when the judge finally ruled in my favor, I didn't feel joy. I felt relief. Relief that the chaos might finally stop. Relief that my children could have the stable home they deserved. I glanced at Lisa. For a second I thought she might cry. Maybe she truly believed things would go her way. Maybe she thought the court would ignore the facts. But the look in her eyes said it all. Reality had caught up with her. Afterward, she followed me out into the hallway. "I don't want things to be like this," she said, voice trembling. "I still want to be in their lives." I looked her in the eye. "That's up to you. But I won't let them get dragged into chaos again. If you show up for them, consistently, great. If not, I'll still make sure they're okay." She nodded, tears in her eyes. But I didn't stay. There was nothing left to say. Now it's just me and the kids. No backup. No co-parenting chaos. Just us, figuring it out day by day. There are challenges, sure. Being a single parent is no walk in the park. But for the first time in a long time, our home feels safe. It feels calm. It feels like ours. And that's worth every ounce of pain it took to get here. Dear listeners, if this story resonated with you, please let me know in the comments. I read every one. And if you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories that hit where it hurts, and sometimes where it heals.